Alright, Trailblazers. Strap in because today we are diving headfirst into the wildest update Honkai Star Rail has ever seen. Imagine this, your main character, yes our dependable Trailblazer, is suddenly moonlighting as a frosty puppeteer, summoning an adorable yet deadly sidekick named Mem, who might just be the most broken mechanic we have seen so far. Forget your basic buffs and predictable kits, this is Remembrance, an entirely new path and the first of its kind. In this video we are going all in on our Trailblazer kit, from summoning Mem and leveraging her true damage buff to abusing her ability to literally gift your characters extra turns, like Oprah is handing out cars. I've got all the spicy details. We're talking abilities, gearing, team composition and yes, how to turn this magical duo into the bane of every enemy's existence. So grab a drink, pet your pom-pom and let's break this down piece by piece in the most entertaining and provocative way possible. Let's go. You know what makes our new Trailblazer absolutely overpowered? It is not just Mem being adorable as hell, she's actually fucking useful. Seriously, she's the kind of support character where everything just clicks. And once you figure out how it works, you're going to feel like an evil conductor pulling all the strings. It is really good. First up we have our Trailblazer skill. On paper it is simple, it summons Mem. That is kinda it, right? Well, not even close. If Mem is already on the field, the skill doesn't just sit there collecting dust. It flips into a healing ability for Mem and gives her a quick 10% charge. Charge in this case is nothing more than energy for Mem. MiHoYo decided to introduce a new name for it, but I am simply going to remove it again. From now on we call charge energy. Her talent isn't just a boring utility, it is a tactical tool. You can resummon her if she gets knocked out or keep her alive when she takes too much damage. However, the real show begins with our Trailblazer's talent. I need you to really let this sink in. For every 10 energy your team generates, Mem gets 1% charge, or energy. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but everything counts. Attacks, energy restoration, follow-up attacks, enemies attacking you, whatever, all of it counts. It's all feeding into Mem's charge like she's plugged into some kind of grid. This talent makes her feel alive, like she's right in the middle of it, responding to everything happening on the field. And since there is no cap on how much energy you can generate, there is no limit on how quickly you can get her juiced up. The more attacks you do, the better she becomes. Speaking of shows, Mem doesn't just stand around waiting for her big moment. Every time she takes a turn, she uses Baddie's Trouble, a solid little AoE ice attack which hits every single enemy on the field. Not only does it chip away at your enemy's health, but once you unlock our Trailblazer's first passive, it gives her an extra 5% energy every single time she attacks. It is satisfying as hell because it all plays into our gameplay loop. Mem hits, gets energy either by doing stuff herself or by literally anyone else doing whatever, and she sets herself up for something even bigger. And the best part, Mem's speed scales via our Trailblazer's talent, meaning she takes turns more often than you would expect. As a small side note here, considering that Mem and Memosprites in general are entirely new to the game, let us quickly talk about them. Memosprites are, so far at least, a mechanic unique to Remembrance characters who, at least right now, at the point of making this video, is only the Trailblazer. Memosprites can appear in your action order, they can be buffed, they can be attacked, they can die, they can be debuffed. Effectively, they are treated like actual characters in the game. And her stats, in the case of Mem here, scale via our Trailblazer's talent for her HP and speed, and her attack, crit rate and crit damage, all of that stuff scales via our Trailblazer's stats. So if our Trailblazer, for example, has 1000 attack pre-combat, that is super important, pre-combat, then Mem also has 1000 attack in combat. Now let us talk ultimates, because our Trailblazer's ultimate is, I guess you could say, the glue holding her entire kit together. It deals AoE ice damage, which scales via our Trailblazer's attack, and if Mem is not on the field, for whatever reason, it will bring her back and give her a 40% energy boost on top of it. The 40% boost isn't necessarily tied to Mem coming back to battle. If she's on the field and you use your ultimate, you will get those 40% energy as well. This is pure utility and power combined into one ability. You get damage, a Mem reset if you need it, and instant progress on her charge gameplay loop. And last but not least, we have our Trailblazer's technique. Look, I don't care how big or tough our enemies on Amphorius are going to be. If you use our Trailblazer's technique, you're going to freeze them in time for 10 seconds. And when combat starts, all affected enemies will get hit with a 50% action delay on their first turn. And on top of that, you're even going to do some ice damage to your opponents. So fairly, I would say, impactful. Now, I mentioned earlier that Mem's charging ability is building up towards something big, which effectively is her ultimate. So let us now get into Mem's talents. Alright, when it comes to Mem, you can find her abilities in your Trailblazer trace window. And Mem herself, you know, mew 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 mew, which, by the way, I hope you understand what I just did, because if you don't, if you haven't watched that video, then I just made a clown out of myself, which wouldn't even be that bad because I do put on clown makeup in the morning. Either way, you can find her abilities in our trace window here, and the first question you might have is, are you going to spend more resources on a Remembrance Trailblazer compared to, let's say, Jade, for example? And the answer here is no, you're not. The overall amount of resources you have to spend is going to be the same as compared to other characters, even though you're technically leveling more abilities. We have our Trailblazer passive abilities, which we are going to talk about in a moment, because those are going to directly influence Mem. But for now, let us talk about Mem's abilities. First of all, we have Friends Together. That is Mem's support ability, and it is extremely good. As simple as that. It gives every single character on the field a crit damage buff based on Mem's own crit damage. So this kind of already tells you what stats you want to go for on your Trailblazer, because Mem's crit damage will be copied over from your Trailblazer, right? So crit damage it is. On top of that, whenever you get 100% energy or charge, you're going to get access to your special ability called Let Me Help You, which we will talk about in a moment. The other two abilities down here are effectively about Mem's energy regeneration as well as our Trailblazer. If Mem goes down, your Trailblazer gets an action advancement of 25%. As simple as that. And she goes down by, for example, being killed by your opponents, right? So that sometimes happens, and if it is the case, your Trailblazer will have its action advanced by 25%. On top of that, we have an ability which gives our Mem a 50% charge if she's summoned for the first time or whenever throughout combat in case she goes down, right? So if she is summoned for the first time, which, by the way, when you start combat, Mem is not there right away. You need to summon her by using your skill, and if you do that, 50% charge right away. As simple as that. If she goes down throughout combat and you resummon her, 50% charge as well. Super easy ability. Now let us talk about Let Me Help You. Let Me Help You can be found in her second window, so we kinda need to level both abilities, because here you have your crit damage buff, and here you have Let Me Help You, which is the main ability of Mem. Once you have 100 charge, you immediately advance Mem's action all the way to the top of the action order. And you can buff a character in your party. You can choose the character yourself. So for example, the Hurter, because our Trailblazer is really good with Hurter, right? So let's say we buff Hurter. And what Hurter gets is a buff called Mem Support for 3 turns. This buff is going to enable True Damage. And True Damage, for those who don't know, is a damage type which completely ignores every type of resistance or damage reduction on your opponents. And in itself, True Damage cannot be buffed. However, we have a few exceptions here, which is one of our passive traces. And obviously, True Damage will be based on the original damage of an attack. So you can buff it. Here in our case, we have 28%, right? Because it's level 6. So you can buff it by leveling your traits. As simple as that. True Damage will copy the damage you do with an attack. So for example, if Hurter does 100 damage on her ultimate and you have our support buff active here, you're going to do 28 points of additional damage. As simple as that, right? So it is really, really good. And it is effectively speaking a 28% damage increase without paying attention to our crit damage increase, right? So Mem, or our Trailblazer here, is a really, really good buff character. Extremely powerful for a free-to-play unit, because keep in mind, our Remembrance Trailblazer here is effectively free to play. All you need to do is to complete our, I'm gonna assume, I'm not 100% sure, but all you need to do is most likely completing your Amphorio storyline, and eventually you will unlock our Remembrance Trailblazer. It has been the same for every single other path in the game so far, so most likely it's not going to change. When it comes to our passive abilities, we have the first one here, which is going to give you a buff on top of your true damage buff. For every 10 energy which exceeds your 100 energy point or threshold, you're going to increase your true damage by 2%, up to 20%. After that, we have our second ability, which is going to advance our Trailblazer's action by 30% when battle starts. And as I mentioned earlier, Mem is not active right away, so this enables you to summon Mem 30% earlier. And Mem, obviously herself, her entire kit is about buffing, so the earlier she's on the field, the better she becomes. When Mem is summoned for the first time, she gets a 40% charge. So we have 40% here, and we have 50% here. That means Mem is going to buff herself all the way up to 90% charge as soon as she enters battle for the very first time. And if you use your Trailblazer's ultimate in the beginning, for example, then you're also going to use up energy, or I guess generate energy for other characters because you're doing damage, right? All of this combined will basically put Mem to 100 energy or charge, and that enables her to use her ultimate right away as soon as you enter combat. Extremely powerful. Other than that, that is kind of it when it comes to our Trailblazer's abilities here. As you can see, when it comes to passive traces, we have a lot of HP, attack buffs, we kind of have crit damage buffs here a little bit at least, right? So let us now get into relics as well as light guns. Alright, now that we have dissected our Trailblazer and Mem's kit, it is time to gear up. First things first, Mem is a picky little Memosprite. Any buffs applied mid-combat to our Trailblazer, like those from our Ice set or Banana set, do absolutely nothing for her. Why? Because Mem scales exclusively off pre-combat stats. That is right, all your extra stats like crit damage, attack and whatever else you get during combat due to various sets are not going to do anything for her. She doesn't care. She quite literally doesn't give a fuck. So rule number one, avoid sets which rely on combat activation. So what should you prioritize? Super simple, speed and crit damage. Speed is very important in my opinion here because you are effectively gaining two very high speed characters for the price of one. On top of that, we obviously have crit damage, which is directly going to influence your crit damage buff. Lastly, outside of those stats, you can go for HP and defense rating in order to increase your survivability. Our Trailblazer here, as well as Mem, are not going to do a whole lot of damage. There's no reason to go for attack, crit rate, ice orbs and stuff like that. You don't need all of that, right? So Mem is absolutely a support unit, and the key here is a balance between crit damage, speed, as well as survivability. Now let us talk about relic sets. The number one option, super simple, our new Hero of Triumphant Song relic set, which has been released in patch 3.0. So you most likely don't have it yet, but you can farm it. It is basically tailor-made for our Remembrance Trailblazer. Here is how it works. It gives you a 12% attack buff unconditionally, as well as 6% speed. On top of that, you're going to get a 30% crit damage buff for Mem as well as the Trailblazer mid-combat. What is important here is that this set states specifically that this buff, the crit damage buff, will work on Mem mid-combat. So any set in the future where you have anything happening related to Memosprites will state it in the set description itself. It is really, really good, especially for our little ice gremlin here. And honestly, I would simply use the set and you're good to go. But if you don't want to farm our new set, no worries, we have other options. You can go for a combination of Messenger and Ordeal, two-piece effectively, giving you a total of 12% speed, which is going to help you a lot when it comes to reaching certain speed thresholds. Now for planner sets, honestly, there's one golden rule here. Energy regeneration is king. Sets like Lushaka, Penacony or Ronwak are the safest bets you can go for. They help maintaining your sweet energy flow, keeping Mem charged and ready to throw out buffs at the right time. But, and this is crucial, you've got to pay attention to your speed tuning. If Mem is too fast, her true damage buff might run out before your DPS gets a chance to use it. Too slow, and you might miss your sweet spot for buffing your key damage dealers. So here's your homework. Watch Mem's speed. Adjust as needed. I can't give you a 100% golden rule when it comes to her speed. It kind of depends on your team, or at least on your main DPS, right? So, and my voice kind of didn't want to go along with that, right? It depends on your main DPS, so adjust it accordingly. However, when it comes to stats themselves, let us talk about a few goals you can go for in order to be somewhat safe regardless of the situation. So we have crit damage. I would go for about 150 and more if you can. We have speed around 160. Like I said, speed is, in my opinion, technically speaking, even more important than crit damage, because it is going to not only increase Mem speed, but also your Trailblazer speed. And because of that, you are kind of feeding into each other, or they are kind of feeding into each other, right? When it comes to energy regeneration, obviously on your link rope, as simple as that. And when it comes to orbs, or your orb in itself, just use HP. You don't need attack, you don't need ice damage, you can go for defense rating technically speaking, but HP is always a good choice. A dead Trailblazer means no Mem, right? So HP and you're good to go. Now let us talk about light cones. Unfortunately, our Trailblazer doesn't have a buffet of options here. In fact, you're looking at just 2 viable picks, but the good news, both are free to play. That's right, no gacha pain at all when it comes to our Trailblazer. There are overall, right now, 4 Remembrance light cones in the game, but the other 2 are more about DPS characters, and our Trailblazer here is a support character, so they automatically fall off, right? So 2 light cones you can use. The first one is Shadowburn. This one is kind of sneaky. When you summon Mem for the first time, it generates energy for her and grants you a bonus skill point. Sounds amazing, right? Well, yes and no. Here's the catch. It can totally screw up your entire speed tuning. If Mem starts acting out of sync with your team's rotation, the whole system will fall apart. So don't just equip this because some streamer or YouTuber is using it, right? It depends on your team. It can technically, I'm gonna assume this will be my prediction when it comes to this light cone. We will see it for certain 0 cycle clears, but outside of that, people are not going to use it. Your second option, and honestly the safer one, is Victory in a Blink. It's a free light cone from our Memory of Chaos shop, and it does exactly what you want. It buffs your crit damage without any conditions. No weird triggers or timing issues, just raw unconditional power. Plus, it also adds a bonus damage buff to whoever Mem uses her true damage buff on. It is simple, reliable and effective. 9 times out of 10, this is the light cone you are going to want, as simple as that. And for that very rare occasion where you are going to do a 0 cycle, but in that case, why are you even here? You should know all of that by yourself. In those rare occasions, you can go for Shadowburn. But outside of those, at least for now, go for Victory in a Blink. In the future, this might change, because I know that there's 1 more light cone, or 2 more technically speaking, coming in patch 3.0. One of them is for Aglea, so it is most likely going to be a DPS light cone, kind of useless for Mem here. And the other one is, I did the Hoyoviki entry for it, but we don't know what ability it has as of now. So there's going to be 1 more light cone, Genius's Response, or Repose, one of those 2, Genius's Response or Genius's Repose, I don't know. It probably comes from an event, so keep your eyes open when it comes to this light cone. It might be usable as well. But for now, it is Victory in a Blink. It is free. You can get it from your Memory of Chaos shop. You can push it to Superimposition level 5 and you're good to go. Lastly, let us talk about team composition. And instead of just me giving you certain teams to go for, let me give you a few tips and tricks when it comes to how you should be using your Mem or Remembrance Trailblazer. Obviously, you can use our Trailblazer here in any type of team because she is a support character. So you can go for follow-up attack teams, you can go for an ultimate team like Archeron, for example, You can technically even use her in damage over time teams, but keep in mind, damage over time can't crit, so your crit damage buff is going to be useless. And when it comes to break teams, just use your Harmony Trailblazer. You don't need Remembrance here. Harmony is still better than our Remembrance Trailblazer for break effect teams specifically. But everything else, you can kinda use her. So let us now talk about a few elements to keep in mind when it comes to how you are going to approach your team building. First of all, when it comes to our true damage buff, it is important to keep in mind that it is active for 3 turns. That doesn't mean attacks, right? So units who do a lot of attacks outside of their own turns are going to be extremely valuable when it comes to our Remembrance Trailblazer. As such, follow-up attack teams are going to be really good. On top of that, you can have your buff, your ultimate buff, your true damage buff, you can have it up on multiple targets. There's no indication that it doesn't work, and I tried it out. You can have it up on 2 or even more targets if your Mem, technically speaking, is fast enough in order to generate enough energy. This in turn makes speed so much more valuable. If you reach certain thresholds where, let's say, you are able to generate your ultimate in 1.5 turns, then you can maintain your ultimate buff on 2 targets indefinitely. On top of that, we have certain characters where our true damage buff has very interesting interactions. One example here is going to be Robin. Robin yeets herself out of the action order whenever she uses her ultimate. If you buff her before you use her ultimate, you're effectively looking at an indefinite duration on your true damage buff. And Robin, obviously, she adds a little bit of damage on top of whatever damage your characters are going to do. So she will also add a little bit of true damage on top of that. This, once again, makes speed so valuable, right? The more buffs you are able to maintain, the better she becomes. I can see a lot of min-maxing happening here on our Remembrance Trailblazer in the future. So keep your eyes open for maybe follow-up videos from me, myself, or other creators out there when it comes to optimizing your Remembrance Trailblazer. Another character who is going to be really good here in combination with her is going to be Sunday, because Sunday has action advancement in his kit and he has a crit damage buff as well, which is going to help you out on Mem, right? And this in turn will help you out on your other characters. Furthermore, we have characters like Höchre who are going to be extremely valuable in combination with Mem, or our Remembrance Trailblazer, but I constantly say Mem. It's technically our Trailblazer, but whatever, you know what I mean, right? So Höchre, her ultimate is going to generate energy, right? But it does this energy generation for every single character in your party. As such, you have a giant boost of charge for Mem herself. This makes her a really good character in combination with our Trailblazer. When it comes to DPS characters, well, you can technically use her everywhere. The Hurter is going to be extremely powerful because she's going to buff Hurter's enhanced skill, and this does quite a lot of damage. Other than that, that is kind of it when it comes to team composition. So let me now give you my own opinion and review when it comes to our Trailblazer here, and after that we are effectively done with the video. So, how do I feel about our new Trailblazer? First of all, I have to say I do like Mem's design. She looks interesting, and so far in all the promotional material we have seen, for example the live stream, she has always been a little bit cute, very entertaining and stuff like that. So I can't wait to see what type of role she's going to have in the game itself, like how she's going to join our Trailblazer effectively as a companion. So that is going to be very interesting. However, when it comes to pure gameplay values, I would say our Remembrance Trailblazer so far is the strongest Trailblazer variation we've had so far. Harmony obviously is very good, but only specifically for break effect teams, while our Remembrance Trailblazer here can be used everywhere, right? She is a universal support character, extremely good in my opinion, and she can only become better with her Eidolons in the future. The only downside I have, which I don't want to see for the next path which we are going to unlock, is that we have another support version here. Because our Trailblazer, let's be honest here, has been all about support ever since the beginning of the game. Our physical Trailblazer, our destruction Trailblazer, is effectively unplayable. It is what it is, right? And preservation was fairly decent in the beginning of the game. A lot of people played it back then. And after that we had Harmony, super good support for break effect teams. And now we have Remembrance, super good support for every type of team. But I want to see a DPS variation in the future, which is going to be able to keep up with, let's say, the basic versions of our 5-star characters, right? So maybe a hunt character would make a lot of sense here to be a DPS unit, and that is about all the criticism I have. So in total, my verdict, go ahead, build her, she will be worth it, and she will not disappoint you. Other than that, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a sub, share the video, dislike it if you disliked it, whatever it is, right? And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.